Welcome to my post-work wind down yoga class. Get ready to de-stress, elongate all of those muscles that have been stuck in a seated position throughout the day, and release hold of any type of stress that you might have accumulated during the day. For this class, I will be using an optional yoga block for a couple of the balancing postures. So if you have one, feel free to use it. Otherwise, don't even worry about it. All right, we're going to begin this today in child's pose. So taking knees wide, we're going to send the hips over the heels, reaching fingertips towards the top of the mat, melting that chest down, just releasing any type of tension that you might have accumulated in your shoulders, your neck, letting your body start to relax, unwinding from your day. Now, if you tend to carry a lot of tension in your neck and shoulders, especially after sitting at a computer, say, all day, then you might want to try taking your hands together into prayer pose. From here, if you want a little bit more, pressing the elbows into the mat, gently start to bring your hands back towards the crown of your head, stopping whenever you start to feel any type of feelings of being stuck or intensity that becomes too much. Once you find that perfect little challenge point, I want to invite you to breathe deeply into this, letting go of all that stiffness, any type of ache, noticing any sensations that crop up in the neck and shoulder area. Coming into that deep Ujjayi breath, breathing in and out through the nose. This warms and purifies the air as it enters into your body. And gently start to reach your fingertips over towards the right side of your mat, keeping the hips just where they are, elongating from the left hip all the way to the left pinky finger, melting that forehead back down. Gently coming through to center now, we'll start to walk it over to the left side. Inching those fingertips a little further away from your mat. Letting the right hip grow heavy. And working your way back towards the center. Good. From here, you're going to tuck your toes underneath as you come up into our first downward dog of the day. Taking any bits of movement here, perhaps bending alternate knees, bending and straightening, just walking that dog out. Elongating your spine, melting the chest down towards the earth. This is a great pose for relieving fatigue. On your next inhale, can you lift your right leg up towards the sky, squaring those hips off towards the earth? So your belly button is facing down towards the earth, hips are level, and breathing into that left calf. Good. Now from here, let's open up the right hip. So you're stacking right hip on left, maybe taking that belly button at an angle towards the right side of the room, bending into your right knee, and then taking a peek under your left arm and maybe seeing your right toes in your vision. Good. From here, we're going to draw big circles with that right knee. Working circumduction of the hip, creating mobility in the hips after they've perhaps been stuck in a seated position all day long. Good. And reverse direction of those circles. Good. Now reaching that right foot behind you, even closer to the ground, you're going to unweight the right hand and flip around until your belly's facing the sky. Reaching that right hand behind you, extending for wild thing, very energizing pose. Good. Now big breath in, exhale and come back to facing your mat, taking that right leg and threading it through now to the opposite side. Now rolling onto your right hand, lifting left fingertips up to the sky, keeping those hips nice and high. Good. Now returning to a three-legged downward facing dog. You're going to rock forward into a three-legged plank and then lower down gently, or vinyasa. So elbows come straight behind you, keeping that right leg lifted. And then once you're on the ground, you're going to set both legs on the ground, tops of the feet come to the mat, lifting up into your upward facing dog, shoulders back. Good. And exhale, finding your downward facing dog again. We'll take that whole series on the other side. Flipping into wild thing on this side, you're going to reach that left foot and unweight the left hand until that foot meets the ground and you find yourself upside down, lifting those hips, enjoying how this feels. And then carefully flipping yourself back to face your mat. Left leg comes under right, rolling onto the left hand, right fingertips lift towards the sky. Reaching. Good. And returning to your three-legged downward facing dog, lifting that leg nice and high behind you. Rocking forward into your three-legged plank. So left leg is still elevated, and then gently lowering down, elbows come behind you. Hips and ribs meet at the same time on the mat. Rolling onto the top of both feet. Lifting up in your upward facing dog. And let's find down dog once again. Good. From here, keeping the hips and legs just where they are, we're going to drop down into our dolphin arms. So we take the forearms down onto the mat. Our forearms are parallel to each other. And we reach that chest even closer to the mat, lifting the hips up, elongating the spine. It tends to get compressed when we sit all day. And let's gently lower and lift the heels. So this is a great way to stretch out the back of the calves, especially for you ladies who might wear high heels at work. High heels look really cute, but they're not so friendly on our calves as they shorten the calf muscles. So this is a great antidote. And also good just for lengthening the calf muscles after sitting all day. Good, so continuing to walk it out. Really pressing the mat away from you to gain more length in your spine. Good. Return the heels down to the earth. We're going to press up into our down dog again. So coming onto the hands. And then take a big inhale as you look between the hands. And then exhale. Let's step one foot at a time between the hands. Good. Inhale, let's take a nice halfway lift. So hands come to shins. You're drawing the crown of your head towards the front of your mat, getting some nice length in that spine. And then exhale, forward fold. Your knees can be bent if you feel really tight and your hamstrings at your low back. Rocking that head back and forth. And then pressing those feet into the mat as you use the strength of your legs to circle arms all the way up, lengthening towards the sky. And exhale, hands come to heart center, Samastitihi. Stepping back now into Trikonasana, triangle pose. This is where you may want to have a block if you're feeling a little bit tight. So make sure that block is somewhere in the vicinity of your shins. You're going to step back with your right foot. And then left foot is going to point towards the front of your mat. That back foot can reach back at a 45-degree angle. Tilt forward, reaching the hand for either your shin. If your shin or the floor feel a little bit far away from you, you can use that block as a little kickstand. Or if you're feeling a little bit more open, feel free to take those left fingertips all the way down onto the ground, either in front of or behind the shin. Now, whatever version, however deep you get into this pose, the main thing that we want to think about is keeping that right shoulder stacked on top of the left so that we're not having to tilt our way forward or round through the shoulders. You really want to keep those right fingertips reaching high for the sky. That right hip is stacked on top of the left, so we're rolling the right hip back, the left hip under. Good. Going long in the waist. Now, if you want a little bit more, you could actually reach that top hand towards the front of your mat. Bicep is right on top of the ear. Breathing through this, finding that deep Ujjayi breath again. Good. And then strong legs as you press on up through to standing. We're going to reverse that triangle by now bringing the left fingertips up to the sky. Right hand reaches for the back of the right leg. Good. Breathing here. Good. And then coming upright again. Moving into half moon. Again, you might want to have that block handy. If you used a block for Trikonasana, let's go ahead and put that block now in front of the toes instead of beside the shin. You're going to shift your weight into that left leg, reaching left hand down to the ground or your block, and then gently start to lift into that back leg. So the standing leg is nice and straight. That right leg lifts, and you're going to stack your hips so your belly button's facing towards the side. Good. Once you have that, you're going to start to add that top hand, so right fingertips reach towards the sky only when you're ready. Good. Now, if it's okay on your neck, you can gaze up at that top hand, but if that's too much strain on your neck, then just go ahead and look down. Belly button is really pulling in to help control and stabilize this. And now, I love standing balance poses because they require so much concentration. You've got to let go of your worries from the day, any outstanding items on your to-do list. They really become irrelevant because balance poses require so much focus. It's a great way to de-stress from your workday. Nice. And then gently releasing out of that, returning to that half moon. Now, ever so carefully, we are going to reverse our half moon. So that means the right arm comes down to the ground. We get our bearings here. You don't want to rush through these transitions. And then twisting now to the other side, left fingertips reach up to the sky. So you won't get quite as much of a rotation here, but we're just going to do our best. Hips are now squared to the earth. Good. Good. And then taking both hands down to the ground, we'll come into our three-legged split. Awesome. And then let's just take that leg all the way in, folding forward, and then pressing feet into the earth. We take a nice big inhale, reaching arms up overhead as we lengthen those legs, and exhale, hand to heart center. Beautiful. So let's take that whole series on the other side, starting with our triangle pose. So this time we take the left foot back, right foot forward. Left foot is at a 45-degree angle, lining those heels up. We're going to reach forward, keeping both legs straight, and then hinge, reaching that right hand now for either the block, the shin, or somewhere on the floor, either in front of the shin or behind it. Again, paying attention to keep that left shoulder nice and stacked towards the right, so we're not rotating towards the ground, but we're actually lifting and opening the heart. Maybe that gaze comes up towards the left hand. Maybe it just looks down on the floor if that's too much in your neck. And if you want a little bit more stretch in the side body, you are welcome to take that left arm overhead, reaching towards the front of your mat, bicep right above the ear. This should feel good. Lengthening your body, opening up the heart. And then preparing for our reverse triangle. You're going to firm up the legs, hinge forward with your waist, and then come upright as you drop the left hand along the left leg. Reach that right hand up for the sky, shining that heart towards the sky. Deep breaths here, breathing into any constriction you might feel. Really lifting up out of the low back as opposed to pinching in the low back. It's up and back. Beautiful. Using the strength of your waist now to return you to an upright position. We're moving right into that half moon Ardha Chandrasana. So we come forward once again. This time, right hand reaches for the ground or a block, but that left leg starts to lift up off the sky. lift up off the ground. And we are now stacking the hips. So instead of hips being squared, we take that left hip on top of right, floating that left leg, and then lifting left fingertips up towards the sky. Good. If you come out of it, don't worry, just come right back in. You won't turn into a pumpkin if you fall out of a standing balance pose. Just having fun and playing with these challenging balances. Good. Now, whenever you're ready, slowly being mindful of the transitions, you're going to take that left hand down to the ground, maybe reorienting that block if you need it to be positioned in a different place. This time finding that rotated half moon, so lifting right fingertips up to the sky, hips square off, belly button lifts in and up to really control and stabilize this balance pose. Good. Now don't lose the deep breath pattern here. Continue breathing strong and steady. Finding calm in the midst of challenge. Good. Tearing off those hips. And then gently release that leg down onto the ground. Just enjoying a nice ragdoll forward fold here. Knees can be bent. You're going to take hold of opposite elbows. The most important thing here is to let the head grow really heavy. There's no effort in the head. You're completely letting it go. Just dangling forward like a ragdoll. Maybe shaking your head yes and no. Maybe gently swaying from side to side, releasing any pressure in the neck and shoulders. It's also a great posture for elongating the spine, and knees can be bent as much as you need if you're still feeling a little tight in your hamstring or low back. Good. From here, we're going to start to gently round up, and as we do that, we're going to toe heel the feet a little bit wider than hip width distance, and you're going to pigeon toe the toes outside. So the heels are going to be a little bit narrower than the toes. And you're going to sink down into Malasana, garland pose, sometimes called a Yogi Squat. So you want to play a little bit with the positioning of the feet so that this does not put any pressure on the knees, but gives you a nice deep release in the hips. If you're really tight in the hips and you don't feel like you can release into this pose without feeling some type of pain or gripping sensation, then go ahead and take that block. You can actually place it right underneath the sits bones and use that to help eliminate some of the pressure. So you can actually find a supported Yogi Squat here if that feels better for you. Otherwise, enjoying a deep hip release. So the hips have long been believed in yogi tradition to store emotional tension. So oftentimes when we say that we're tight in our hips, it could be certainly that we have not been moving them enough. We might have been finding ourselves in one position, feeling stuck in that seated position. We also tend to store emotional feelings and anxieties here as well. And there's a lot of research now cropping up to indicate that that is true. So we physically release, we emotionally release, we let ourselves feel safe. We give all this anxiety permission to dissipate from the body. Breathing deeply into it. Pressing palms together. Elbows opening up those knees even wider to get more of a stretch. Nice. Coming into our low lunge series now, you're going to shift the left toes forward, right toes are going to step back into a nice deep lunge. Now you want to make sure that you've stepped back far enough so that the left knee is not coming forward of the left toes. You want that knee right above the ankle joint. So wiggle a little bit further back if you need, and then you're going to gently release that right knee down onto the ground, and the top of the right foot will melt onto the ground as well. Reaching hands for the inside now, that left leg. Depending on how tight you are in the hips, you might want to keep your arms straight. You can also, if the ground still feels a little far away from you, you can also utilize that block once again to bring the ground a little closer to you. If you feel good here without the block and actually want to go a little bit deeper, you may enjoy coming down onto your forearms. Now, to get even more release in the outer edges of the hips, you can roll onto the left outer edge of the foot, releasing that foot up on the inner edge and then letting that left knee fall to the left side of your mat. Enjoying how this feels, melting that heart forward if you need a little bit more stretch. Breathing deeply into this here. Letting go. Now, if you're on your forearms, we're going to return to straight arms. Right hand comes down, left hand reaches up to the sky for a nice twist. Inhaling, exhaling, pulling the belly button in and up so you can find a little bit more rotation, a little bit more physical space to move. Nice. Now, if it's available for you and you'd like a little bit more opening in the quadricep and left hip flexor, you're now going to reach for that foot behind you. So bending into the knee, reaching for that foot, finding a nice back bend here. Or if you'd like a little bit more for the quadriceps instead, you can start to bend that foot in closer towards your glute. And then ever so carefully releasing out of that, returning that foot to the ground. Hands come to either side of the foot, shifting your weight forward just a bit as you gently step back into your plank posture. Good. From here, we're going to switch it over to the other side. So now switching feet. Good. Make sure you have a nice deep lunge here so that the knee is not coming forward of the toes. Good. So from here, you've got options. You can come on straight arms or maybe take it down onto the forearms if you did that on the other side. Maybe letting that right knee open up to the right side of the mat, coming on the outer edge of that foot. Releasing, surrendering. Nice. If you're on forearms, it's time to come back onto straight arms. Left hand is centered right underneath your face. Right fingertips reach up for the sky. Belly button pulls in so you can find a little bit more rotation, rinsing out, detoxifying those internal organs. And then if you'd like to reach for that foot, gaining a little bit more in the quadricep. And gently releasing out of that, taking your time to set that foot down onto the ground. Coming back into your plank pose. And let's just reach it back into a child's pose. Nice. From here, we're going to press forward into a seated position and come to lie down onto our back for a spinal twist. Good. Extending the left leg long, drawing the right knee in towards the chest. You're going to take your left hand across your body towards that knee to start to guide that knee over towards the left side of the body. Right hand out stretches towards the side of the shoulder in the opposite direction. And for counter stretch, your gaze or drishti in yoga is going to be looking out towards that right outstretched hand away from your knee. Try to keep both shoulders on the ground if you can. Breathing deeply into this twist, releasing in the low back. It's great to work the spine in rotation. Much of our day is spent in forward and backward movement only, particularly forward. So we want to make sure that we're working that spine in every direction that it was created to move in. Noticing as you breathe, if your body invites you to go a little bit further into the pose, going by invitation only, never pressuring yourself or forcing a stretch. And then gently returning towards center, taking your time to get there. You're going to extend that right knee long now for the ground. Left knee pulls in. You're going to guide it across the body, taking that twist towards the opposite side. Remembering to keep both shoulders on the ground. And then gently returning to center, extending both legs long, letting the feet fall open towards the sides of your mat, palms face up. It's time to enjoy our final pose, Shavasana. Now, if you're a driven, busy professional, you may find that the hardest thing of all is to do nothing at all. It's also the most valuable thing you can do to counterbalance all that effort, all that problem solving, all that resolve, discipline, and willpower. We now find that opposition. We invite the body to simply surrender. We invite the mind to release. We give ourselves permission to simply be, knowing that we are perfectly safe and whole in this space. Allowing the earth to support and hold us. Feeling any tension drain out of our limbs, into that mat, and letting the earth carry it away. And your next inhale, let's gently reach arms up overhead, finding a nice big stretch here from toe tip to fingertip. Exhale, let's draw the knees into the chest. You're going to gently rock forward into a comfortable seated position. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for taking the time to find some health and vitality and restoration at the end of a stress-filled workday. You are more than the sum of your accomplishments. You are beautiful and whole just the way you are. Namaste.